Okay, another short video. Now, for those of you that say, how can you be so hard on military and law enforcement? First of all, I am a veteran. All right. Not only did I work in the military and refuse to follow unlawful orders, but I did so for 10 years. Received an honorable discharge. Afterwards, I worked in the civilian sector for quite a while. Did quite a bit of things. Eventually, I worked private security. I was protecting heads of state. All right? And we're talking about princes from the UAE and other high-profile people. I was recruited by everybody from Secret Service all the way down to the local police department, the state police, even private security firms. And in the words of one state police officer, he said I was highly decorated. And to me that's laughable because of course they think so because under their administration in that state, they were basically reorganized by a former Marine. And so he doesn't hand out awards easily, just like the Marines don't. Now, did I earn most of those? Yes. Some of them were passed out like candy. I mean, like everybody since 1990 has pretty much gotten a freebie ribbon here and there. But the point I'm trying to make is I'm very knowledgeable about what the military is like, what law enforcement is like, and I know when rights are being violated. I'm not an idiot. I'm a student of the Constitution. I've been studying the Supreme Law since I was a child. I've been raised in lifestyle that promotes firearms since I was a child. 12-year-old, I had my first high caliber rifle. And I was also mentored by a Green Beret who saw service in Vietnam. And a couple of other veterans that were in the neighborhood. So from a very young age, I already knew that I was going to be in the military. Now, when I left the military, I decided to get out because I saw things that I didn't agree with. And trying to attach us to the United Nations was one of them, among other things. But, forced vaccinations and other issues. And being deployed constantly and having my marriage destroyed and eventually getting divorced, I'd had enough. So they gave me an honorable, and I left. Now, working in security showed me the side of law enforcement. And I took the tests. I passed with flying colors. I was actually going to join a local police department in Baltimore City. And I changed my mind when a detective came in to give us a briefing before telling us, we could continue after we passed the tests. That working in Baltimore Police Department would have meant that I had to expect to get set up. Now, I had heard about corruption within the department, but that just kind of verified it for me. So at that point, I decided to leave security and forget the whole idea of joining law enforcement. Now, you say, well, that was cowardly. No, that was just smart. Know when to pick your battles, basically. So instead, I sought work in another part of the private sector and eventually started working for FedEx. Now, mind you, I've been through a lot of rocky things in the last few years before I worked at FedEx. And while I was there, I began to open my eyes and see what was really going on in the country. And while you're working for a delivery company, you tend to see a lot of things other people don't. You tend to see how logistics is run, how many different government agencies are all over the place, because you have to deliver to all of them. And being out on the East Coast, it's like standing room only for government agencies. They're everywhere. It would be ridiculous for me to point them out on a map because they're all everywhere. It's ridiculous. Everybody works for the government. Everybody is this or that. Every contractor office has some kind of contract with the government to develop software or whatnot. So it's ridiculous. It's everywhere. So at that point, I basically just kept an eye on the news, and I was learning and refreshing and reacquainting myself with constitutional rights and law in general. And then I began to start to prepare for the event that, some natural disaster happens, or maybe tyrannical government takes over, in full force. And so I went and got the rifle that I'd had since I was 12 years old from my brother. He was out of state. And I decided to update it. It was an old Mauser. It was a short barrel, and it was chambered in .308. And I decided to upgrade it, give it a new stock, refinish it, do some other work on it. And so I had that project underway. And at the same time, I decided to buy a rifle kit and assemble one myself that was more modern. I'd also decided, since I was interested in doing home building of firearms, that I would test out my skill, because I'd worked in the metal trade before, and see if I could actually do something, because mechanical things intrigue me. I've always been intrigued by mechanical objects and problem solving and seeing if I can accomplish something. So for me, building a firearm was more about accomplishment and saying, yes, I did this, and taking pride in it, than it was about actually having the firearm, even though I do enjoy target shooting and I am very accurate. But for me, it was more of that. It was a hobby. So anyway, I started to work on these things. And of course, it's a slow process. You don't get it all done at one time if you don't concentrate on it. So it was just kind of something I had on the back burner. So I had parts, and I had a rifle, and the problem with that, though, was that I was not living in a secure environment. And this is kind of heads up to people that are in apartments, or maybe you're renting a house with other people. And that's kind of the situation I was in. I was renting a house with other people. And even though I had a lock on my room and I had most of everything secured, some people moved in that were not very savory. Let's just say that. And one of them decided that they wanted to break in my room while I'm gone, and I work at FedEx. So they broke in the room, and I had some cash socked away, because I was getting ready to go get a car. I had worked hard for it. I wanted to go ahead and pay cash for it. I wanted to go to an auction. Didn't really feel like dealing with a bill at the time. So instead of making a payment, that's what I wanted to do. So anyway, this thief decided to steal that money. And when I came home, first thing I did was I was hungry. I'd been working on the road all day. It was late. It was like 7 o'clock. And there was a little corner store I could go get some chicken at. So I wanted to go get some chicken. So I made an order. Got ready to jump in the shower. Came back out. Went to go find where my money was. And it was all gone. They didn't even leave me enough to go get my chicken. So I was pretty pissed off. Anyway, I sat there and talked to my landlord about it. I walked around the house. I tried to confront people. Nobody wanted to come out of their rooms. So I'm sitting there talking to my landlord, and he's like, well, did you call the police? And I'm like, no. I wanted to let you know what happened before calling the police so that when they get down here, you won't be surprised. And so we're talking on the phone and everything, and next thing I know, I hear a knock on the door that, someone called the police on you. And I'm like, they called the police on me? Wait a second, I'm the one that's been robbed here. Someone took my money. I didn't do anything to them. So I told the landlord while I was on the phone, hey, someone's knocking on my door and telling me the police is going to get here. And so he handed the phone to the manager. And the manager was like, listen, we know you got guns in there. And we're okay with that. But we also know what the police do in this city. So you need to get out of that room right now. Distance yourself from those firearms. Because if they got to kick the door down, they will shoot you. We're just telling you. So what it is, I stayed on the phone since the police were already on the way. And I sat down on the stairs in the hallway, the stairwell leading upstairs, and talked to them on the phone and said, I don't know what to do, what else I'm supposed to do. They're like, well, you got two options. You can either run or just stay there. So I'm in the hallway and I'm surrounded by everybody that lives in that house. They passed me by. The police came in there and passed me by, asked people, where, what's going on, who's got the gun, blah, 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 blah. And I'm obviously sitting there on the phone. I've got a rifle that's tore down. I mean, it's getting restocked. I've got a glass bed to stock, so I'm doing all the inlet work and everything. It's not in functioning order. So what do? They don't ask my side of the story. They don't have a warrant. They're there simply to assess the situation. They don't have probable cause yet. I don't have a firearm. I've got a phone in my hand. I'm sitting down. Not in a threatening posture at all. So what do? As soon as they find out it's me that this thief said had a gun and was walking around threatening people, they slam me down on the stairs, kicked the door in, and they found the rifle in pieces. And they found the other parts that weren't even assembled to another project. So immediately, they completely violated my rights. This is something that is despicable to me. There were a few police officers on the scene that tried to stick up for me. They asked me certain questions. They had no evidence to prosecute anything, really. So those police were ready to, stick up for me because they saw no reason why I should be violated like that. However, the officer that answered the call was the one who had precedence in this case. So they took it upon themselves to try to assemble a case against me. And here's where it gets fishy because, and I've still got the police report. They took a supplement that I had in a bottle clearly marked as L-carnitine, which is good for your body. I mean, you might want to do a little bit of research on it, but they took that supplement, put it in a bag, and tried to pass it off as heroin pills, which is a huge trade in Baltimore. So, in order to make the firearms violation stick, because there was no violation, nothing was illegal, they had to fabricate evidence. They had to falsify evidence and say that I had heroin. So, make a long story short, I sat in jail for almost 40 days. I've been charged. The public defender was a joke because they could have got the case thrown out immediately. But eventually, when it was all said and done, they had to drop the charges. They had to let me go. And they had to release me. But the problem with that is in the state of Maryland, regardless of whether they throw the case out or not, the charge stays on your file. They don't erase it. They want you to pay for an expungement. Well, since I'm not going to pay for an expungement, and I know what they do to people when they keep things on their file like that, I chose to leave. So I moved. I left the state. They got mad about it because they couldn't stop me from moving. They couldn't stop me from seeking employment somewhere else because I hadn't committed any crime. So, if you find yourself in that situation, move. Now, just make sure that you don't have any pending charges. But you can move and vote with your feet. I do. That's it. Bye.